You watch out, Ma Cher. There is a lot of sickoes loose on the streets.
Yeah.
A while ago we made a video about games that killed their studios. And while our viewers seemed to like the topic, there were a lot of suggestions of studios we should have included in the video. So, reason enough to make a second part to this video. Here are 10 different games that killed their studio. Oh, Pandemic Studios, where to begin with this one? Pandemic created a bunch of great games that we miss a lot these days. Games like Mercenaries, Full Spectrum Warrior, the real Star Wars Battlefront games, and Destroy All Humans. However, their last game, the Saboteur, didn't fare so well, and the sales numbers were horrible. At the time of closure, the studio was also developing a Dark Knight movie tie-in video game, which was cancelled because of certain deadlines that were missed. There were also plans for a third Mercenaries game, but for now it seems that we might never see a decent follow-up, which is a big shame. We miss you, Pandemic.
That's it! They're running and fleeing in terror. One evacuated Spanish villa secured. Contract complete.
Where the fuck's the lieutenant?
Forget that, Peckerboy, come on!
But he's got the fucking radio!
There he is! Lieutenant! Over here! Move it!
Pivotal Games is known for the Conflict series, but they also developed a video game adaptation of the classic Great Escape film. The Conflict games were pretty decent third-person tactical shooters that definitely had their fair share of dedicated fans. Unfortunately, the fifth installment in the series, Conflict Denied Ops, released for the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3, was a downright disaster. It never reached the quality of the first 4 games. By that time, publisher SCI was bought by Eidos, and the restructuring of businesses meant the closure of Pivotal Games. Swingin Studios developed only one game, Metal Arms Glitch in the System for GameCube, Xbox and PlayStation 2. The game was an impressive cult hit, and Swingin Ape was trusted with the development of Starcraft Ghost. You might know that Ghost never saw the light of day, because its development was very troublesome. After a few years, Blizzard decided to put the development on hold and bought the studio out. Blizzard kept the developers they wanted and assigned them to different teams within the company. So we'll never get to play the long-awaited Starcraft Ghost.
The future says you die. But I am dead. As are you.
The Canadian video game developer Silicon Knights used to be a great studio responsible for many classics. Games like Blood Omen, Legacy of Kain, Eternal Darkness, and the Metal Gear Solid remake for GameCube. However, the next project, Too Human, took ages to develop and wasn't that much of a success. Their last game, X-Men Destiny, was also a huge disappointment because it was such a boring piece of crap.
I know you'll make the right decision.
During that time, Silicon Knights was involved in a court battle with Epic Games about the use of the Unreal Engine. They claimed that Silicon Knights didn't pay the royalties for it. It even resulted in recalling copies of all their games from stores. Such a sad downfall of a once great studio. Clover Studios started as Team Beautiful and made a bunch of awesome games. 4 Beautiful Joe games and the cult classic Okami were made before Clover Studios made its last game, God Hand. God Hand wasn't a bad game, but it had a pretty hard time finding its crowd. The game just didn't sell. And the other games developed by the studio also didn't have remarkable sales numbers. This resulted in Capcom, who practically owned the studio, dissolving Clover into nothingness. Many of the studio's talented developers joined Ignition Entertainment, Platinum Games, and Tango Gameworks. So luckily, the spirit of Clover games lives on.
Head to the go-go, baby!
What do we have here? Another scrumptious young plaything straight out of life and into my club?
Vampire: The Masquerade Bloodlines was Trojka Games' last game, and it's awesome. The game used an early version of the Source engine made by Valve. Though Activision wanted to release the game earlier, Valve demanded that Half-Life 2 would be the game debuting the engine. So Bloodlines released on the same day as Half-Life 2, which wasn't a smart thing to do. The game was a critical success, but it didn't sell a lot of copies. And while the company was trying to find a publisher for another game, it shut down. Unfortunate, because Vampire: The Masquerade gained quite a cult following over the years, so everybody who wants a sequel to this one, it's probably not gonna happen.
Hey! Heard anything?
Cole Phelps, traffic. What have we got?
The development of the detective game LA Noire didn't go as smoothly as the developers at Team Bondi had hoped. Although the game was revolutionary for using motion scan technology, its development took ages and the working conditions of the developers were pretty poor.
So the guys' names that I've been seeing doing the repairs on the heaters, they're fully licensed and accredited.
In the end, the game was a critical and commercial success, but Bondi didn't succeed in securing a new development project, forcing the studio to shut down. We don't expect Rockstar to resurrect the series anytime soon.
You can't be accusing me of nothing. You've got the wrong guy.
Sing was a small Japanese studio that had a quite close relationship with Nintendo. It developed a few great point-and-click games like Another Code, Glass Rose, and Hotel Dusk Room 215. They also made the brilliant Little King's Story for Wii. Last Window: The Secret of Cape West, which was the sequel to Hotel Dusk, was the last game they developed. After that, the studio filed for bankruptcy in 2010 due to its financial problems. Last Window was a big commercial failure and looks like one of the reasons why we now live in a world without Sing. An interesting studio, to say the least, that made games that were everything but mainstream. Let's honor the studio by playing their games, shall we?
Close all exits.
Back in the Dreamcast era, Sega tried to make their own Metal Gear Solid in the form of Headhunter. However, the Dreamcast was dying and Sega decided to release the game only in Europe. A PS2 port followed that did make it into the States. The success of this game ultimately sparked interest for a sequel on the Xbox and PS2, which was released in 2002. Headhunter Redemption wasn't a commercial success, and this meant the end of Amuse, the Swedish studio behind it. It's unfortunate because both games, especially the first one, were a blast to play. We'll never know what games the studio could have made after these two, and that's a pity.
Wade, we're kind of busy here.
I know. I need a route into the mall, Chief.
Forget it.
Shiny Entertainment is the studio famous for creating the Earthworm Jim series and the first MDK game. Earthworm Jim even got its own animated TV show, which was great back in the day. But this studio is also infamous for crappy games like Enter the Matrix and The Golden Compass. They are probably some of the worst movie tie-in games ever made. But that didn't stop Foundation 9 from buying the studio. It was merged with The Collective, another mediocre studio, to form Double Helix Games. Under this name, they made a lot of shitty games and a few good ones. Strider and Killer Instinct are still pretty awesome. Which game studio do you miss the most? Let us know in the comments, and please like the video and subscribe to the channel.
Got it. Hang on in there.
Keep an eye out for the other hostages, Jack. Some of them were beat up pretty bad. These guys play rough.
So do I.